Warning. This podcast is about to open the sealed section of spirituality. Hey you, yeah you, we see you, you divine human being.
And we are calling you to come home.
We are ready to talk about the real shit. We're going to get real about life as a divine human being.
The good, the not so great, spirituality and taboo. Divinely Human is the podcast that's all about what it means to be human in a spiritual context.
We know it's not just about being spiritual, it's about being human too.
And that means changing poopy nappies and channeling angels.
Sometimes even at the same time. It's time for us to stop making other people's noise our own soundtrack of life.
Let's make some waves together so that we can all ride them together and create deep resonance, a sense of home in this crazy world.
Pour yourself a coffee
or a glass of wine if that's your potion,
and sit down with your new favorite spiritual sisters
as we go on a journey together into what it means to be
a divine human being
on this spiritual journey.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Divinely Human podcast. We are so excited to have you back, and today we're going to pick out a little topic out of the cauldron and see what comes through. Do you want to do the honors?
Yes, let's do this. Okay, so I like this one.
Ooh, okay,
what's really great is that both Tanita and I, before we hit record, we were speaking about how we really wanted this episode to be kind of like light and, easygoing fun. And the universe listened because today's episode, we will be starting on the topic of how to manifest like a human.
Oh, I love this. Honestly, for a split second there, I thought the universe was going to be a little bit nasty. Yeah. But I'm glad we're talking about this, because I think that I, in the past, have learnt so many different manifesting tools and different ways of doing it. And something that's always, in my experience, forgotten is the fact that we are human with sometimes really crappy thoughts and really crappy experiences. And when you try and manifest from a place of just pure positivity 100% of the time, sometimes what that does for me is feed my inner bitch who's like, well, we're not always positive 100% of the time. And that just spirals, and it makes the whole process like really hard to achieve and strive for. So I love this topic of manifesting like a human, because our human has shadows and it has parts that want to keep us still, that want to keep us safe. And I think that we need to approach manifesting like a divine human.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you said it. I feel like manifestation itself has been given quite a bad rap in the past few years. Like even myself, caught myself out at some points, and I'm like, just feeling like almost resentful towards the way that it's become a trend or a hook to reel people in. And so I think that that's right. Like, you need to honor your shadows. And it's so funny that you said that too, because I actually just posted a TikTok this morning about this, about like throwing love and light. So when we think about manifestation, right, the first thing we think of is like love and light, like throwing love and light at a situation and then it'll manifest like magic. And that's not it. And I think that's why it's been given quite a bad rap, especially from the people that are quite real and raw in this space. And I think the first thing that is really important when it comes to manifestation is that, it's not all love and light. And it's really important to do your shadow work and to allow your shadows to be seen, allow your wounds to be seen and acknowledged and heard and held.
Mm.
so that they don't continue to fester. Because what happens when these things continue to fester and aren't felt and acknowledged is that that lowers our vibrational frequency down and actually cuts off that beautiful magnetism that comes through when you're wanting to bring things through into your life and to manifest them in.
Yeah, I so agree. It's a great way of explaining it because it's true. And I was reading this book, what's it called? Radical Confidence by that Lisa Bilyeu. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but in there she talks about, our inner mean girl, our inner bitch. And she's like, she just wants to keep us safe. Like those parts of you, those negative voices, the part of you that maybe doesn't 100% believe or wants to keep you still, that's coming from a really sacred space within you too. And I think that when we ignore that very real part of us, the feedback we're actually telling ourselves is, hey, you can't be you 100%. And that's so damaging for our confidence. It's so damaging for our authenticity. And it's so damaging for our ability to manifest. I think that acceptance is really important here, and really understanding, what does your shadow want to tell you? Like,
Mm.
what is it really trying to say, and not just taking it at face value. Like, yeah, we all have those crappy thoughts. Like, currently I'm trying to write a book and so much of me is like, you don't know what the hell you're doing. But where that's coming from is a part of me that just wants to do really well, right? So if I just listened to that part of me that was like, you're not doing good, I would stop doing it. But if I dig a little deeper, then I can really understand, okay, this is just the part of me speaking. She doesn't have the right kind of words to communicate properly, but she just wants to do a really good job. And I can satisfy her by doing the best that I can.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like you just touched on, and like that is ego, but ego not in a bad way. And I also, I really don't like the whole ego thing in this space
Yes.
either. People saying like you need to, you know, get rid of your ego. We need our ego. Our ego is here to keep us safe. So as you were saying, like you're trying to write a book at the moment and doing something new, taking a new path, stepping out of your comfort zone, out of your box, and doing something that you've never done before, like for the logical mind, that's scary. That's unknown. And of course, your ego is going to come in and try and protect you. Our ego loves us almost too much because it tries to keep us so safe and secure and cozy 24/7. So it's not about getting rid of the ego, it's about telling it that it's okay. Like, I'm safe. I'm in a safe space to do this. I've got this. Thank you. I love you, but it's going to be okay. And just putting it down for a little while, or just allowing yourself to move past it. And then you sort of realize that you are stepping into all of these new pathways, and the things that you are sitting back and, like thinking that you want to manifest, you don't even need to really do like the whole, I really want this to happen. Like you just see it gradually come through, and it's just happening for you. Like manifestation for me, like my experience of manifestation is, it's only when I surrender and just put everything down and just be in a state to receive, but also in a state where I'm not leading from fear, where I'm leading with this self-belief that I am okay and I am safe. And yeah, this is a little bit scary, but it's going to be okay. And it's going to be a lesson regardless. That's when I feel like I receive the most. Do you find that?
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you brought up the surrender, because I wanted to talk on this. There's so many spaces out there that say, plant your seed and then like let it go. And for me, that was the hardest lesson to learn around surrender, because what I thought that was okay, I want this thing, but now I have to release control. And we were just like talking about this before we pressed record about controlling, which is so funny. But I find that surrender comes when you allow the universe to do its part and you do your part too. It's this co-creative space that we have to be in. So for me, the surrender part isn't just about like, I want this thing, I'm going to meditate on it, I'm going to think about it every day and not do anything. The surrender part is actually like, I want this and I know my desires are true. I'm going to do everything in my power to go down this direction. But at the same time, I know I'm okay whether this happens or not. And I know the universe has me, whether it's this that is, manifested or something better. And I think it's a hard lesson to learn because our human wants to know and project and plan and strategize. And sometimes it's really hard to fully surrender. But it's so true. When we do surrender, things come to us naturally because we're also putting a message out there that, like, hey, we trust you. We want you to take care of us. We're signing up for this and so much more. And I think it would be really silly for us to think that we know everything, that we know what's 100% best for us and our biggest plan in life. Yeah, that's playing a really small game, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And it comes through. I feel like when you sort of see these things, these, manifestations that you put out and you see them come back, and sometimes they shapeshift and they come through in different ways. And a lot of the time we can read that as not receiving, or we haven't done a good enough job, or we haven't been doing the work. But I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to trust, and really trusting that what's coming through is meant for you at this, divine time in your life, in this present moment, and not getting so caught up in just wanting to be there as well. I find that and this has come through a lot at the moment in the readings that I've been doing for a lot of people. So I don't know whether there's a collective like angst just to get to the destination. But if you're not enjoying the journey, if you're not sort of like surrendering and softening into the journey, you're really not going to be content once you get to that destination either, because it's not about reaching a space and a place and then like, oh, I'm happy now. It's about that lesson that you learn along the way of in surrendering and softening to sometimes the discomfort and whatever is happening along your journey. In softening and surrendering to that, you're actually setting yourself up to carry that through and carry that forward into other aspects of your life where, yeah, things may get hard. It's not going to just the clock isn't going to click over and it's just going to be like, oh, okay, I've got it and now I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it, what you're doing on the journey in the now, in the present moment, is actually setting yourself up mindset wise to be able to carry through this practice of surrendering and softening and just, swimming through.
Yes, literally. And I find that manifesting is so much about how you feel. Like you were just saying, even if you got the thing that you manifested, whether it was like a physical or a tangible thing, the truth is, if you don't do the work on the journey, then you're still going to feel the same. And as a human, our emotions are incredibly important to us. It's how we subscribe, whether things are good or bad, not that anything is really, but it's important to understand, why am I doing this? Like, really, truly, why do I want this thing? How do I think it's going to make my life better? And on the way there, can I, make little changes that align with that along the way? And
Mm,
I think, oh, what were we talking about in the last episode where we were saying, a lot of people with businesses in this area, they only show one portion of their life. And then when they step out, wonder why they're still unfulfilled, or wonder why they're still not attracting clients. And this is the same thing. So whether you're manifesting a big business or lots of clients, it's like, well, where are you shutting yourself off in every other area? Because your manifestations, your desires, they truly don't just pick one aspect of your life to live in. They really do trickle out into every aspect. And I think that it's so important to be reminded of that.
mm. Yeah. And then it just comes down again to like reading into how the universe is delivering that as well to us.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, from my experience, you're not just going to learn that lesson in one aspect.
Oh,
It's going to
yeah.
be sifted through different aspects of your life, and down to like your family and your relationships, and what your experience is like as a mother, and not just in the spiritual world or the physical realm where you're like receiving something physical. It's going to really play out in every little aspect, because it is a lesson, right? We're here, we're down on earth school. We're not here just to like pick and choose what we want to learn. We're here, we're students, and we're always going to be students. And it's really important just to be mindful that what you are putting out and wanting to receive back isn't necessarily going to come back in the form that you may think it will.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it really is dependent on the parts of yourself that you have been ignoring.
Oh,
And a lot of the time that's the most like it's the biggest surprise when it comes up, because when you ignore something, it's completely out of your consciousness, right? It
mhm.
doesn't really exist in your little bubble, in your little, in a universe, because you've ignored it and you don't want to deal with it. So a lot of the time when you're manifesting and you're putting things out to the universe and you're getting it back, before you actually reach that point of abundance with your manifestations and what you're wanting to come through, there's that lesson. And it's always like, it's like the little part that clicks in and allows the manifestation to sort of come through to fruition and into the physical. It's that like, okay, the lessons learned. Now he or she is ready to receive, like they're ready to receive this finally. Because I think the lesson that, I don't know, I mean, I speak from my experience here, but the lesson that we learn through what we're putting out is like that missing puzzle piece that allows that abundance to like click through. It's like you're not going to get it unless you like have that aha moment of like, oh, that's the lesson here. And then you see it come through and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, literally. And I mean, I always think about it as like, even if this manifestation did come into your body or into your world, like, where is it going to land? Where is it going to grow? This is such a catalyst for so much more. And I feel when we really true desire for something to be manifested through us or in us or around us, we want something deeper than that. We want
Mm.
something more. We want, the life that it's providing, or we want that direction. And so if we don't allow that manifestation to fully manifest and fully ground down, then we can't receive all that it's going to catalyst into after that as well. So even for like, people who, I was in this group and there was so many women especially in there that were saying, I want money, but I feel yuck. Like I don't want money. But the truth is, they want everything that money can provide them. They want the lifestyle that money can give them. They want the safety, they want the opportunity, the accessibility. There's so much more to it. And I think that's something that's really helped me with manifesting, is understanding the bigger picture to what I actually want, not just the surface level stuff.
Yeah. There's always like a root, like a root of that is the like the key,
Yeah.
and the acknowledgement in that sort of allows you to unlock it in a way. And I've been on this journey. I've just been on this money,
Mm.
abundance, wealth journey, mindset change, like wanting to bring through wealth and abundance into my life over the past year or so. I've really focused on it. And that's so true what you just said. It really is. We kind of get blindsided by what we think it means.
Yeah.
And then when
Or
we
what we've
dig,
been told it means.
yes, exactly, like what society has told us that it means.
Mm.
And it was kind of the same for me. I've always grown up and I didn't want to be greedy or
Mm.
um like I just felt like I had to be modest and fair and not greedy and I think not wanting. In
Yeah.
my head, I kind of grew up thinking like you shouldn't want. But when I broke it down, like I didn't want money in the physical. I wanted freedom.
Yeah.
And is freedom not like, well, I feel like freedom itself should be just a basic human right. And in today's day and age, should we not have access to that? And in today's society, what is the first door that you walk through that enables that for you? A lot of the time, it's wealth.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And then again, like if you want to provide freedom for your family, for your children, again, it's like we just have to be really realistic about the world that we live in. And I think that's also a part of this whole story, is that we cannot neglect reality. We cannot neglect the fact that we do live in the world that we live in today, and that we are bound by some rules on this earth, and let's use them to our advantage, and let's work with it instead of feeling like everything is up against us, because for a lot of people it does feel that way. But again, we can use the system, the rules, all of the limitations actually to our advantage. And I think that when we shift our perspective with a lot of things, we can call in so much more, because we, like you were saying at the beginning, we're not holding this lower frequency with such a high standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And when you're just to touch back on what you were just saying as well about feeling like the world is against us and that like the system is fucked up, and like yes, the system is fucked up, it's very unfair for a
Yeah.
lot of people, but I think when you I think it just comes back to that softening and surrendering into the discomfort that sort of leads you through. I'm trying to think of a good word, but I feel like it really leads you through this understanding that you kind of know how to play the game. And I don't like to call it that, but like these systems that we live in, these like I guess the setup of like how the world is set up, how Earth is set up,
Mm.
when we sort of put down the resentment and the like those lower vibration emotions towards it and just think, okay, how can I use this to my advantage? How can I do it?
Mm.
It kind of opens it up for you and kind of clears that blockage, because while we're sitting there feeling resentment, we're not going to move anywhere, are we?
Yeah, 100%. And what did Victoria Washington say in one of her masterclass? She's like, the risk of not doing it or not manifesting this in this context is so much greater than if I was to never do it at all. Like the risk of, wait, was it the other way around? What did she say? She's like, the risk of not doing it is greater than the risk of actually doing it, right?
Yeah.
And we can say the same about manifesting. The risk of not wanting this and not letting it come into our world is so much greater than if we were to ever not get it in the first place.
Mm, yeah. And I definitely recommend, if you're listening to this, try it on. Like, try on that way of thinking, try on that approach to what you want to bring in and create, and put aside the the guilt or the shoulds or shouldn'ts, and believe in that you're being led. Like obviously you feel drawn to manifest this thing or this feeling or this state of being. Trust yourself in that, and put down like the shoulds and shouldn'ts, and like maybe this is wrong, or this is bad,
Yeah.
and just try it on, and then just see what happens after that. Because as Tanita just said, it's so much more risky not to, and just to keep pushing it down or aside, and not just give it a go.
Yeah. And you know what? This just reminded me, this is why inner child work and connecting with your inner child is so important in the manifesting journey,
Mm,
because our beautiful inner child they don't really care about consequences. Like a lot of them, when we go before that age, when we learnt what was wrong and right, they have such a curious little mind. They love to play, they love to explore, they love to experience, and they don't believe that they're inherently unworthy of having the things that they desire. So tapping into your inner child and letting him or her or they play can really help in this experience of manifesting like a human, because you get to tap into that part of you that knows you are worthy of having it, right?
And it's only really once we get past that childhood stage, like, well, I mean, it starts in childhood, like the
Mm.
the subconscious blocks that we put up when it comes to doing things and wanting things, like the money thing and all of that. um I think that, yeah, the first step to bringing something new in and to manifesting is actually exactly what you said, like a lot of inner child work and removing those subconscious blocks that you have. Because, man, a lot of the time you don't even know what you're holding on to until you
Yeah.
peel back the layers. You're like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I cannot believe that I felt guilty for wanting a sense of freedom.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Like, where is
Mhm.
that rooted from? And you will find where it's rooted from a lot of the time and just be blown away that little you has kind of grown up and built this block that you have subconsciously in your adult life. And you've been beating your head against a wall going, why is this not happening for me? Why is this not
Yeah.
happening? And it's because you have those repressed emotions that you're holding on to that are just completely like barricading off that pathway to that thing that you really want to bring through for yourself or in your physical world or whatever it may be. A block is a block.
Yeah, it so is. And I totally agree. Looking at our subconscious blocks and reprogramming our mind in a way that's supportive of the journey that we want to go in is really, really helpful. And there are so many different ways to do that. And I think that you have to really find what works for you. Because the same with meditation, not everybody resonates with meditation.
Yeah.
And so you have to find what works for you. How best do you connect with your inner child? How best do you reprogram your mind? Like affirmations for me, they just don't click. Whereas doing a deep hypnosis, that really clicks for me. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to find and try, and I think this is where the word play comes in, because we never want to put that pressure of like, I'm doing all of this work to get the output. And that's another like unweaving that needs to happen in manifesting. It's like, I'm putting in all this effort, I'm thinking about it every day. I expect that the result is given to me. And so we play with all of this and we allow ourselves to experience things without any expectation. I think expectation is really important.
Mm, yeah. It comes, yeah, as you said, it comes back to that childlike
Mm,
state of being. um and play, and like what ignites from play and like the mindset of play, joy. And what is joy? One of the highest vibrational emotions
yeah.
that you can feel. So if you think about what that actually does on a cellular level, like, honestly, if you're activating your joy, I feel like that's another thing as well with manifestation. Like when I get sometimes Virgo problems, I get so serious sometimes,
Mm.
and I actually have to call myself out and tell myself to calm the fuck down. It shouldn't actually be this serious.
Mm.
And then I have to find ways to activate my joy in my everyday life. And
Yeah.
it's once I find, and I've been noticing this pattern for a while now. When I activate joy, when I spend time consciously activating my joy, whether that is something that I love to do, speaking to someone I really love to speak to, it could be completely unrelated to what I'm wanting to manifest. But by activating that joy and that play, it really does raise vibrational frequency, okay, on a physical level. And it's like I just feel buzzed and in a state of surrender already. And then I see everything come through following that. And I'm like, man, there's a formula to this, I swear.
There so is. You know, every time I think about you manifesting, I think about that day you were on your Instagram stories and you're like, fuck, I need Jesus today. And then you walked outside, there was like Jesus, like literally written in the sky from a plane. And I always think of that because, again, like, and I just remember you laughing
Careful what you
so
wish for.
hard. Yeah, I remember you laughing so hard on your stories. And it was so funny because that was just so joyful to watch. And again, you were like, you know, be careful what you wish for because look what comes through. Like, I needed Jesus today. And I mean, I got it, but like, this is not what I was thinking.
I did not need a Jesus skywriter.
That was
It's so
so
true.
funny.
It's a perfect example of it, I
Yeah.
feel. And like that leads us to as well, like, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, big time. And be careful of the words you use. I find that our language is so important, and the words we use are really important. What we affirm to the universe, what we affirm to ourselves, and just knowing the words we're using and how we're asking for things as well is
Yeah.
really important.
One thing that I love to do, because a lot of people who are in my cleanse groups,
Mm.
they always come to me and they say, Aleisha, like, what should I be doing for my intention? Because we do intention setting and we write it down. And anyway, that's part of the ritual. And then we bring through intentions. So they're like, how do I word this intention? And a lot of people, so for example, if it's a new moon, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to feel this anymore. I
Yeah.
don't want this. I want this to stop. But I'm like, how can we rephrase that? Come on, let's play around. Instead
Yeah.
of focusing on that negative aspect, I always say to them, instead of saying that, maybe say like, I want to feel this way. I want to bring in this, not so much focusing on like, I want to get rid of this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, I'm
Yes.
like, and it just made me think of that when you were saying language is so important because yeah, that whole Jesus situation. I did
Eva
not
was like,
clarify what I wanted. And a lot of people are like, what can I ask for? And I'm like, girl, you be as detailed as you possibly can be. There's none of this like vague, like, oh, I hope I get somewhere near there or somewhere near this in a few months. Like, get really fucking detailed on what you want and put those details out into the field, out to be played with, out to the universe to come back. Because if you're not precise, that kind of just like that's just like saying like, I want a burger, but I don't care what the fuck's on it. Just give
and
me
then be
hamburger.
pissed when you get a chicken burger and not a beef burger. Like,
yes. You've got no one to blame but yourself.
yeah, exactly. And just think of it like talking to somebody, like exactly, or like ordering at a restaurant. Like, what would you expect somebody to do based off the instructions that you give them, or you know, the requests that you put in? Just think that, yeah, we're so powerful, and we forget that we can use everything in our tool belt to really help us on this journey. And again, this like lesson around responsibility wants to come through. Like, you are also responsible for bringing your manifestations to life. You're also responsible for asking very clearly what you want. Like, the universe is probably not giving you things because you haven't learned that lesson around, you know, actually taking some responsibility for your life.
Yeah. There's a lot of work involved in manifesting. There's a lot of work. There's a fuckload of work. There's a lot of shit you need to go through and work through. Like, you, and it just like, I'm feeling this example wanting to come through, but it's like saying like, oh, I want to manifest a new relationship in my life, but then being like obsessed with your ex.
Oh yeah.
Like no, that's not going to happen for you. Like you
Mm-hmm.
need to do the work. There's so many things that you need to release. I think release is a huge thing before bringing anything through. And if you think back through to our beautiful like moon cycles as well, like we have the full moon where we release,
Yeah.
and a new moon would not be as magic if it wasn't for the full moon, right? Because
Yeah.
that's when we release, that's when we shed, we're letting go to make room for this new stuff to come through. So don't think you're just going to manifest all of these things or this feeling or, you know, state of mind into your life without having to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't
100%.
work that way.
No. And honestly, why would you want to hold on to all of that? You know, why hold on to the past? Why hold on to the grudges and the blocks and the pain and the all of this shit when you could really do this and clear so much beautiful room. I was reading this book and she was saying, you know, your emptiness is God's space to plant seeds in you. You know,
Oof,
I know, isn't it beautiful?
oof,
And
that's
that
good.
really opened me up to a whole other layer of clearing, like really truly releasing, sitting in that feeling of emptiness, because when we clear, then we can really tune in and listen to what we actually want. I feel like clearing is like step number one, even before playing, really, because your desires, they could be also coming through a filter of like pain or trauma or block, and you might not be getting the full picture. So if we clear ourselves away and just sit in that emptiness, that vastness, that space, that limbo, then we can really tune in and listen to actually what we really want, not just like the car, the money, the $100. Like we can listen to what's actually wanting to come through into ourselves.
Mm, yeah, yeah. We need to, yeah, there's a huge sacrifice that has to happen. And it might even sometimes, I feel like sometimes there's a whole, and this has come up recently. I just know that I've been feeling and thinking about this, but I can't actually pinpoint when.
Yeah.
Sorry, so vague. Um, sorry guys. But a lot of this has been coming through at the moment. And it's this sense of, I think when you bring in things into your life and you're manifesting, there's also a grieving process that comes
Ooh.
with, there's a huge grieving process that comes through from, because you do need to, it's like moving on from something. There's
Yeah.
something that you've had to let go of. So I think that sometimes that can take some of this silver lining off manifesting, but it's a process. And I think that's like a lot of like some things that I've brought into my life. There has been a huge grieving process that
Yeah.
comes after that. And I felt quite down in the dumps and really like sad. And I'm like, why do I feel so sad? I've got what I like, what I was working towards. But subconsciously, there's a huge grieving process when there's a shift and a change and you're moving on from a certain energetic field. Because as you manifest and as you create, you're in this beautiful co-creation of the universe, and your vibration doesn't necessarily diminish, it's growing. And a
Mm.
lot of the time we do feel that grief that comes with that huge shift,
Yeah.
and sometimes we can't pinpoint it and
Mm.
what it is, but there is, I've caught myself a few times feeling like a little bit disheartened, and I'm like, why do I feel like this? I should be happy.
Yeah.
But it's just trusting and softening again into that discomfort of change and metamorphosis that allows us to really move forward. And then eventually it becomes your you, like it becomes you
Yeah.
once you become more familiar with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because I literally just wrote a one-on-one blueprint for a new client I have, and I've left so much space for her to grieve because she's going through a massive transformation. And I created that space for exactly what you're saying. We need to allow ourselves time and space to really let go of what we no longer want. Because at some point in our evolution, we thought that that was going to be it. Like that was the end
Yeah.
destination, that was the goal, that was the identity, that was the space we were going to be in. And now we're letting that go and we're moving on. But parts
Mm.
of us are still attached to that. So allowing ourselves to grieve and let go, we clear space for the new you. And I always think of this as we're constantly peeling back the layers to get out and get to know ourselves deeper, to allow our real true authenticity to shine through in a more magnified way. And part of that includes ripping off the shreds and leaving them. And that's a grieving process.
Mm.
And you know, it's funny because children, when they like go through developmental stages, they always like Madeline always goes back a couple of months. Like she'll
Oh, yeah.
start falling over more, she'll like mess up her words, she'll just constantly hurt herself. And she's going through this period of really shedding like all of that so that she can step into this new development cycle. And it's the same for us as we're adults. It's just
Mhm.
comes through differently.
That's a beautiful example, actually. That's a beautiful example.
Mm.
It's so true. And I see it too with my boys all the time. And a lot of the time, even their mindset and behavior, you can see it
Yeah.
trickle through. And then we're like, oh my God, they're such a
Yeah.
pain in the asses.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
like in a few weeks from then, they're doing something new or they're like had a huge developmental leap. And you're like, oh, a lot of the time, and I admit I don't take that time to take a step back and go, there's actually a grieving process no matter how old you are.
Yeah.
There's that shift of like, things are changing and things are going on behind the scenes subconsciously, but you can't pinpoint it. And of course, when you're that young, you aren't able to do that. And the only way to express that is through behavior and
Yeah.
communication in that
Emotion.
way. And for anyone, no matter how old you are, peeling back the layers and releasing and letting go, that's such a tender place to be.
Yeah.
Like it's just so tender and sensitive. And it's not always going to feel beautiful or
Mm.
comfortable and safe,
Yeah.
but it's just such a necessary thing. And if you think about it too, like, all of those, like a butterfly, it literally turns from this, like, a lot of them are like these caterpillars that can pretty much, like, they do a pretty good job at protecting themselves. Like some are pretty poisonous and they can kind of
Yeah.
get around and do what they need to do. And
Yeah.
then they have to go into that really vulnerable, tender stage of,
Stillness.
in stillness in their cocoon. And I'm like, they're literally hanging on a tree. Anything could sweep past and eat them.
Yeah.
But they trust in that and they just sit and they stop and they surrender. And then if they're lucky, they come out the other side, a beautiful butterfly. And like, it's so worth it.
Again, that risk, so worth it, right?
Yeah. Like would you be happy with just being a caterpillar and then like it all ending then? Or would you take the risk? Like, would you be more upset if you didn't take the risk of softening and, sitting in your cocoon for a little while and allowing and then releasing it to then spread your wings and step into that new version of yourself?
Mm.
That is so much more colorful and beautiful.
And again, there's so many more opportunities as a butterfly, right? You get to fly, you get to see new heights and experience new feelings and experiences, of course, but sometimes we don't know we're going to end up like that butterfly, right? Like we don't know that we're going to come out the other side okay. And so that's why it is sometimes easier just staying where we are. But again, what do you really want? And if that doesn't motivate you, what do you want to pass down to your children or the people around you or the generation that comes after? Sometimes you have to be the one that first sits there and stops and reflects and allows yourself to transform, even though you know it's going to be one hell of a ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just reminds me of all of the the women in the past that have taken that first step to allow us today to have the freedom that we have. How fucking scary would that have been back in the day, standing up and saying no and risk being killed just to have your freedom, and it, like, yes, that's a large scale of thinking about it, but it really is those first few steps that can be so frightening and scary, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, but regardless, you're handing this down, and it is a legacy. This state of creating and showing not just yourself, but your family and your sisters and your daughters and sons, that they can create these things. And yes, it may be scary. Like, that's a legacy that I myself really want to hand down to my kids, to allow them to be able to create their own lives and not be told what they should and shouldn't be doing, and to really lead with their intuition and the calling of their soul. So I think, thinking back to those times when, women in the past have done that for us, to sit here today, to be sitting in this room, working and doing this and creating, and have this be part of my job, like an aspect of my job that I do, this would not have been happening right now if it wasn't for those women back then. So
100%. 100%. And connecting with ancestors is always so beautiful. Like, when you said that, I was reminded when I first started my business, I kept going back and forth between, do I do it? Is it going to work? Like, all of this. And I started connecting with one of my grandmother ancestors, and she came through. She's like, girl, if I was there, I would slap you. Like, you have so many opportunities to make this work. Like, you don't understand how easy this can be for you. So why not? Like, why not do this? And I always go back to that, because I was like, yeah, like, she had to fight tooth and nail to just, like, she couldn't even have her own bank account, like, let alone having a space where we get to grow abundance. So sometimes we just need a slap in the face from our ancestors to get our moving.
Yeah, especially now in this day and age. It's the age of Aquarius, baby. Like, if it's any time to go against the grain and go your own way, it's now. We living in this beautiful frequency at the moment that is shifting into this state of allowing us to really go against the norm. So, like, there is no better time to up your manifestation practices and to really believe that you can create the life and the situation and the environment in that which you want to live in and to pass down to your children.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. Why don't we finish on 3 of your most favorite ways or things to help you manifest?
I love that. I feel like so number one probably would be, and I've only started doing this the past probably 2 years, is journaling, but journaling during meditation. So I really love it. I feel like there's something with writing and actually getting it out into the physical realm that really, I don't know, it solidifies it for me. So I really love journaling on what I'm bringing through. Second thing would probably be, I really love like doing my cleanses and like the meditations, not just like a sitting in silence meditation, but like a meditation where you're really bringing your emotions through to allow you to feel what it would be like in that moment where you are receiving that. And not just me, but so many people that I've spoken to that have taken that have said the same thing. And it's just beautiful. Emotions really do play a huge part, a huge, factor in bringing through manifestation. So I really love that. And the third thing would be self-belief and self-confidence.
Yeah.
I think once I upped my confidence, once I started doing like a lot of, and I think if we break that down, it's like self-love.
Yeah.
So self-love, self-care, confidence. How are you going to believe, how's anyone else going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself, right? So
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like in that act of self-love and self-care and really nurturing yourself and making yourself seen by you, that is like the ignition there to be able to step forward.
Yeah. Oh, I love those so much. And I totally agree with every single one of them. Like they're really important. For me, I'm going to say three different ones, but I love those. For me, it's about connecting with my inner child because
Mhm.
there's a lot that she can show me. And so I love bringing her through with joy, but also I love going back in either journaling or meditation and actually giving it my manifestation or what I want to bring through to her as an adult, because sometimes my inner child, she doesn't always feel worthy if I go back between a certain age. And I love being able to provide for her, because what that is telling me subconsciously is that I can provide for myself, I can look after myself, I can care for myself, and it just trickles out in a really beautiful way. So I actually love doing that. Another thing I love to do is a goodbye and welcome ceremony. So I will write like a goodbye letter to the parts of me that don't support me in this manifestation. And I'll do a ceremony and a releasing around all of the things that I no longer need. And I'll do a welcome ceremony around what I want to bring through and how I, as an individual and as a person with an identity, can step forward and help bring this manifestation to life. Yeah.
I love that.
It's
That
really
is
beautiful.
beautiful. Oh my
It's
goodness.
definitely my go-to. And then my third one is providing evidence for myself. I think we can really easily forget that there's so much evidence out in the world for what we want to bring through. So for me, like, around wealth, following people online or reading books that give me evidence around what I want to bring through, the type of wealthy woman I want to be, the type of life I want to live, and really being intentional about I'm following this person so that they can provide me evidence for the life that I want, not a comparison kind of vibe, which you really
Yeah.
have to be intentional about that. But those are my
Mhm.
three.
Ah, I love those. I love them so much. I did the letter thing recently.
Oh, did you?
And it was powerful. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
so powerful. Ugh, yeah. Anyway, I could speak about that for another whole podcast
I
episode.
think we should. Maybe we should, because it's so, so powerful.
It's so beautiful. Oh, thank you for sharing those. I
No.
feel like we've just given everyone a lot of tangible things to go focus on and bring through and start to practice if it feels right. So I really love that. I love speaking about that really spiritual side, but also some really like tangible, actionable things that
Yeah.
people can focus on to really bring it through. So
Me
yay.
too. This was a lot of fun.
So much fun. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here, listening to this, absorbing this. And I hope that it really served you all. I hope that you all have a clearer gauge of like what meditation, what manifestation is, and just a new aspect, a new perception of it, because a lot of the time it is very different to what it actually is. As always, you can find us at the Divinely Human podcast.
Yeah.
We are on Anchor, Spotify, and
YouTube.
YouTube as well.
Like, and
Also, if you would like to put in any suggestions on what you would love us to speak about, what you would love us to unravel and dissect in terms of spirituality or anything, please leave that. There is a space on our Anchor site for you to put in your suggestions, and we would so love it. We will be choosing, if we choose a suggestion that someone has put in, we will be doing a live card pull for them to say thank you and show gratitude on the podcast episode as well. So it's been so beautiful. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll speak to you soon.